Hey folks, in this video we are going to be considering a case study of the gamma male to try and illustrate some of the aspects of this personality disorder. And as a special bonus, I have a guest star who volunteered to be here, Phil Mason. You might remember him from such YouTube videos as Thunderfoot, Scourge of the Feminists, or Evolution, an alternative to Loving God. So for those of you who haven't heard of it, Thunderfoot decided to self-destruct recently by making an unprovoked attack against Sargon of Akkad, his what you would think would be one of his fellow travelers. Now, the circumstances surrounding this attack, what happened, was recently there was a feminist YouTuber, a guy that goes by the name The Skeptical Feminist, who has been accused of murdering his girlfriend. And so Sargon of Akkad was on a live stream with a few of his buddies where they turned into a bunch of giggle Nazis. You know, giggle Nazis. When you engage in schadenfreude over the miseries of somebody on the political left. Giggle Nazi. And now, was this appropriate to be making jokes about this? You know, on the one hand, I would certainly argue that male feminists have a very high level of dysfunction. There is quite a bit of actual misogyny amongst the men that call themselves male feminists. But is this the best case example to be using for that? And is it too early to make jokes? Are the jokes inappropriate? Well, to the latter, I'd say all jokes are inappropriate. That's what a joke is. Okay, jokes are based upon suffering. They're always inappropriate. And as to the latter, or as to the former, I would say, no, this is the wrong case to be using. Like, if you want to point to a mentally ill, misogynistic feminist, look at David Futrell. Okay, that guy's got a really sick attitude towards women and children. He's creepy. All right, but this particular case, it's such an extreme event that happened, and there's so many confounding factors. You know, it's like trying to boil down one of these school shooters to video games. Did video games contribute? Well, hey, maybe, but that's hardly the only factor. And so this guy, you know, some reports are saying he had PTSD. Then there's the fact that he's in a polyamorous relationship. And, you know, which caused the feminism? Did feminism cause polyamory, or did polyamory cause the feminism? You know, there are so many factors going on here that trying to attribute it simply to feminism is too gross of an oversimplification. Now, I generally try not to be a giggle Nazi, but I don't always succeed. So, was what Sargon did appropriate? Well, maybe not. Maybe it was a little bit over the line. Maybe it was a lot over the line. You know, I've got better things to do than police Sargon's behavior. Certainly on a matter like this, where it's a political opponent that would presumably like to see me in prison for the fact that, you know, I'm conservative. So I've got much better things to do than attack Sargon over this. But not Phil Tinas Mason. Phil decided that this was a perfect opportunity to launch this largely unprovoked attack on Sargon, in which he quoted him out of context, just went all out. And you know what, guys? It's rather heartening that other people are finally starting to pick up that, you know, Thunderfoot, the guy's a bit of a prick, actually. And he does quote people out of context. And he's not a reliable source. And, you know, he's a loose cannon, a destructive person. But I'll tell you what he is. He's a gamma male. He's the perfect illustration of a gamma male, which I'm going to presume you've heard the terminology before. It was derived by Vox Day in his sociosexual hierarchy. I'll link to that down below if you're unfamiliar with it. But the gamma male, what the gamma male is, to describe it briefly, is they're a very intellectual male. They tend to be very intelligent, and they're usually going to be very skilled at something, if for no other reason than that they've dedicated their lives to proving they're better than other people by devoting themselves to this skill. And see, that's the core of the Gamma male. They are convinced they are better than everybody. They are the secret king. They are the smartest person in the room, and the fact that nobody else acknowledges that, they actually use that as proof of just how intelligent they actually are. They're very destructive, envious. They're just bad people to have around you. You can't really deal with them in a sane way. You can't converse with them. All they do is ruin anything that they get close to. And that's precisely what Phil Tinas Mason is. And so trying to explain the Gamma male can often be difficult because it's so insane. And the tragedy is that these Gammas are usually very talented, skilled, intelligent people. There's no reason for them to be such destructive losers. And yet they are. So let's take this case study of Thunderfoot to kind of illustrate what a Gamma male actually is. And so let's consider the history of attacking people that we have with Thunderfoot, because we don't really know that much about his personal life. We can make some educated guesses, but most of what we know is on the internet. So let's consider this history of attack. Now, a lot of us, we liked him back in the day because he was attacking idiotic targets. He was attacking, Anita Sarkeesian. He was attacking these, ridiculous young Earth creationists, like the particularly hypocritical and dishonest ones. He was generally, pro-science, so, we all kind of liked him. But then for some reason, he decided to attack Stefan Molyneux. And I don't even remember what he was arguing with him about. He just got really angry and posted an attack video against Stefan where he quoted him out of context. Then, he went after me during all of that nonsense with the movie. Except he didn't go after me over the movie itself. He went after me because I tend to subscribe to the structuralist view of history. In general, I should say. Not just with World War II, not just with the Holocaust, but in general. I tend to think that it's not so much there's an Illuminati, I just think there's a lot of rich business people with similar backgrounds and similar interests who get together and work together. It's kind of just a product of the system. As opposed to, what I would dismissively call the conspiratorial view of history, which, suggests that Hitler was designing the mechanism of his massive gas camp death machine, while he was recovering from getting his one nut blown off in World War I. So yeah, Phil comes after me, accusing me of being a Nazi, of being evil, of being all of this nonsense that has nothing to do with the movie, and is all based upon quoting me out of context. Not too long after that, about a year later, he started attacking Elon Musk. Because Elon Musk is trying to build one of these maglev trains, and he's going to build it in a vacuum tunnel so that you can get from, LA to San Francisco really fast or something. And so now we have Thunderfoot, who is a chemist by training, and, I would say evidently has never worked on a car because he really doesn't seem to understand how mechanical sciences work, attacking something that's mechanical in nature, that he clearly does not comprehend, and making an ass of himself in the process once again. And then the most recent one, he goes after Sargon. So what can we say about all of these attacks? Well, the first thing that we notice is that Thunderfoot, he doesn't have disagreements with people. Take Stefan Molyneux. There's plenty of stuff that I disagree with Stefan Molyneux on. I'm not a big fan of the non-aggression principle. I'm not an atheist like he is. Lots of stuff I disagree with him on, but I generally consider him, an ally. We're on the same side pretty much. We have some minor disagreements, maybe even some major ontological disagreements, but I would love to talk with him about those. Heck, I frequently disagree with Aaron Clary, and that's actually how our friendship started. He posted something, and I liked his writing, but I disagreed with that, so I wrote a post disagreeing with him, and tweeted it at him, notice me senpai, and that's how we became friends. People have disagreements all the time. Not Phil Mason, though. Phil Mason has blood feuds, often with people who've never even heard of him, and people that should be his allies. So what's going on with this? Why does he get so angry? Why does he get so vicious? Why can't he have a respectful disagreement with somebody? Why does he have to turn it into a blood feud why does he have to turn a molehill into a mountain? Well, this is the secret king. Okay, this is the gamma male that is completely convinced he is 100% right about everything, and that he's just persecuted by this world that doesn't acknowledge his innate superiority. Thunderfoot cannot admit he's wrong about anything. He is the smartest person in the room. And so anybody that disagrees with him to any extent whatsoever is an enemy. It's splitting is the psychological term for it. You're either completely with him or you're completely against him. And of course, because he's the secret king, everybody is ultimately completely against him. It's a very, very lonely life that he leads. Anybody he hasn't attacked yet, well, he just hasn't gotten around to it. But he is opposed to absolutely everybody. The only people he accepts are those who grovel before him, the way the secret king deserves to be treated. Now, the next point to make about these gamma males is that trying to figure out what you did to offend them is damn near impossible. When he posted these attack videos on Stefan Molyneux, and there were like 3 or 4 of them, I don't know that Stefan had even heard of Thunderfoot at that point. Certainly he hadn't said anything that really disagreed with Thunderfoot all that much. Thunderfoot's talking about anti-feminism this and pro-science that, and Stefan Molyneux agrees on all that stuff. He talks about stuff like the non-aggression principle and, don't use violence, etc. Don't beat your kids, that sort of stuff. And yet, out of nowhere, Thunderfoot posts all these massive attack videos on him. Why? You could speculate that it's because Thunderfoot benefits from big socialist government. He certainly loves the EU and hates Brexit. But honestly, I don't think he thinks that deeply about it. I don't think that's what Stefan did to offend him. Same thing with me. Was he actually offended because he didn't want to be associated with that whole clusterfuck of a movie? Well, again, I don't think so. If that was the issue, he would have gone after both of us. Or if he was upset about the handling of the film, he would have been attacking me for the handling of the film. But he was attacking me about something completely unrelated and untrue. With Elon Musk, why is he so angry that he's trying to... this is the one cool thing that Elon Musk is doing. Everything else is a bloody scam. But, that whole vacuum tunnel train, that just might actually work. Kind of a nifty thing. I'd like to see that succeed. Yet he attacks him over this. And then Sargon, allegedly being a giggle Nazi. So what? Who cares? Okay, there are dozens. It's the internet, okay? If you look around for somebody being an asshole on the internet, you're going to find them. See, these gamma males, they take the weirdest things as personal slights. Because again, the gamma male is the secret king. And you're supposed to show the right sort of decorum around the king. You're supposed to do what they expect you to do. Supposed to show them the proper obeisance. Except the secret king never tells you they're the king, and they never tell you what they expect to see from you. So maybe it's the fact that, I don't know, Stefan and I are both bald, and, we're okay with it. Maybe that really offended Thunderfoot. Maybe it's that Sargon, like, who knows? Maybe Thunderfoot has a huge problem with, ancient Middle Eastern royalty. Unless if you know these gamma males really well, and you can do some major psychoanalysis of what's triggering them, you have no idea what it is that you did to trigger them. It's never obvious, because it's always some secret rule that they've made up in their head. Let me put it this way. I once deeply offended a gamma male by buying him a beer. Seriously. That was like the offensive thing that he just couldn't let go. I bought him a beer. Like, these people are freaking insane. Next thing to note is that the arguments that the gamma male makes are contradictory, hypocritical, illogical. And we see this with Thunderfoot quoting people out of context. And you would say, how can a man of science be so irrational? Well, again, you're not thinking like a gamma male. See, the gamma male is the secret king. They know everything. They are the world expert on absolutely everything that there is. And so the fact that you stepped out of line proves that their emotional reaction to you is the argument. All right, their emotions are the truest fact. The same way, if you mouth off the king, you're actually undermining the whole system of government. Okay, if you engage in sedition against the king, you're not just making a smarmy joke. In a monarchy, you actually are threatening the entire bloody system. From from the guy that cleans the gutters up to the church itself. So that sort of threat to the system, you will have, monarchies will generally have quite a bit of free speech, but dissing the monarch usually isn't part of that, because it's an integral, it's not just the person of the monarch, it's the institution of the monarchy. And so to the gamma male, when they're dissed, it's an attack on all knowledge, on all reason, on all facts. And so their emotions become the fact. Okay, they're angry emotions, and they will obsessively dig through anything in a manic state to try and connect these pieces together to create this conspiratorial theory about how you are a bad man. Whether it's Stefan Molyneux's a bad man because he doesn't think you should beat children, or if Elon Musk is a bad man because he's going to kill people with explosive decompression, or if I'm a bad man because I've read history books, or if Sargon is a bad man because who even knows why? Because he laughed at a frickin' feminist who decided to destroy his own life. The facts don't matter. The emotions matter. And the final thing, you'll notice that he has stated that he quits the skeptical community. Which we'll get back to that shortly, you better believe me. See, these gammas, because they are the secret king, they refuse, they reject external validation. Now, your average person, your healthy, psychologically normal person, They want validation. We all want validation. Now if you're going to do something creative, if you're going to put yourself out there, generally you need to have a lot of self-confidence. You need to be convinced that you're really, really good. Like you don't show up to the Olympics because, you think you're average. You show up because you think you're really, really good. And you want to give it your all. But you also want to get the medal. You want other people to acknowledge that you're really good. You want to be tested. You want to be able to show just how good you are. Not with the Gamma, because as far as they're concerned, they've already won the contest. The Gamma, if you offer them an award, if you say, wow, you did really well, I approve of what you did, you're implying that you have the right to judge them. Even if you're judging them positively, you've got the right to judge them. And they flip out. Honestly, one of the worst things you can do to a Gamma is compliment them. If you dismiss them, they think, oh, you're just another evil Chad. But if you compliment them and say, hey man, you did good, kid, they despise you for that, because that implies that they lack self-confidence, which they do, but they refuse to admit it. And so this is ultimately why they are so destructive, why they are so vicious and antagonistic. Anytime they are collaborating on a project with you, like directly or indirectly, whether it's a project that you're directly involved in, or if it's a broader project like Gamergate or the skeptic community or anti-feminism, the fact that they're collaborating implies that they're part of a team. And if other people on the team say, you did good work, it implies that they're at least equal to the Gamma male when the Gamma male knows he's on top. And so often what these people will do is right before something is finished or successful, right before it actually goes and wins an award, right before it's finished, they will sabotage the whole damn thing to prove to you and to prove to themselves that they don't require external validation. Now, where do these Gamma males come from? Because, it's all good to laugh at Thunderfoot. He really is a self-sabotaging person. He's the sort of man who would refuse to wear Axe body spray, not because he knows it's going to creep out girls, but because he thinks it would actually work, and he likes to self-sabotage by not doing anything that will make his life any better. Good Lord, look at that beard. So yeah, it's fun to laugh at him, but the reason that it's worth examining people like Thunderfoot is because I think a lot of us, we've got a little bit of the Gamma in ourselves. And I think it's a large part of it is the social structure that we have nowadays. Now let's say you go back to the 50s or the 60s. Those were the days of the real alpha male scientists. Okay, these were the old science fiction movies of the time. The main character was usually a scientist sitting in a laboratory with a hot girl on his arm. Okay, the guys that were all involved with the Manhattan Project, the lady killers, all of them. Dr. Manhattan was inspired by all of this, and he's a great example of that as well. Very intelligent and sensitive, but also very masculine at the same time, very confident in himself. Now you contrast that to the sort of world that we grew up in, with the breakdown of social norms, breakdown of the family, etc. And so what I think happened is that for a lot of us growing up, if you were intelligent, or if you were sensitive, or what have you, basically there were two roles being offered in high school. On the one side, you've got the big, dumb, aggressive jocks. And if you're not a big, dumb, aggressive jock, if you are not a, future criminal in the making, you kind of got relegated into band geek, science nerd, Dungeons and Dragons, etc. Because he really didn't have these positive versions of masculinity where you could be, masculine and intelligent. That role model wasn't offered to us, at least not as strongly as it probably should have been. And so if you were in the geek category, you need some sort of sense of validation, some sense of self-respect. And I think what happened is a lot of these kids, you become an expert in science, or an expert in Dungeons and Dragons, or an expert in Star Wars lore. It doesn't matter what. And so you use that, you cling to that as a sense of ego, a sense of self-esteem, to feel better than the dumb jocks. And the sad thing is that a lot of guys carried this forward into their adult lives, where they would keep doubling down on this one thing. They wouldn't say, okay, yeah, I'm a smart guy, but you know what? Guys also need to be strong. Guys also need to defend their women. Guys need to be charismatic and friendly and positive. And so, yeah, I'm not a jock. I'm not a whatever. But it doesn't mean that I can't lift weights. Doesn't mean that I can't be the life of the party, even though I do like to read. A lot of guys just kept doubling down on that intellectualism and using that to hate the successful people. So they start off hating the dumb jocks and the bullies. The kids that got picked on by their dad at home, so they picked on the kids at school, and were probably more physically capable than your average kid out there. They started hating those guys, but so that slowly expands. Now they hate everybody on the football team, even the smart ones. Now they hate soldiers. Now they hate men who are successful with women, etc. Anybody that doesn't worship them for being a dungeon master becomes their enemy. And so I think there's a lot of us, a lot of men in the Gen X and Millennial generations, they have a little bit of the gamma in us. And that's not a good thing. If you indulge in that, you become Thunderfoot. And believe me, you don't want to be Thunderfoot. Thunderfoot. Well, I was going to say Thunderfoot doesn't want to be Thunderfoot, but Thunderfoot's probably the only person that actually wants to be Thunderfoot. He loves his miserable, hellish existence. So it's important to get over yourself and remain humble so that you don't become the gamma male. But let's finish off by talking about the wider implications of all of this, of Thunderfoot quitting the skeptic community. And, I think it might have been Zers, Base F double Z, who pointed this out. But there is no such thing as the skeptic community. Now listen, Return of Kings and the Rouge V Forum, those are communities. Bodybuilding forums are communities. The alt-right is a community. But skepticism? See, skepticism is inherently negative in nature. It's critical. It's endless criticism. And listen, criticism is not a bad thing. All right? You need some negativity. If you're always positive all the time, then, eventually you're going to run into somebody that, mugs you. You need negativity. You need skepticism. These are wonderful things. But skepticism itself does not provide a positive direction. Skepticism does not provide a purpose or a goal. It's just endless criticism. And man needs to live by some sort of standard, some sort of value. It's increasingly absurd to me the way people treat science like it's a religion. Science is a methodology for attaining knowledge about a particular thing in a very limited domain. Science will help you diagnose a problem on your car, but it won't tell you why you should own a car in the first place. It's nothing but a problem-solving methodology. It's a calculator when you get right down to it. And hey, calculators are really cool, but calculators are not a reason to live. Calculators are not a community. Nobody forms a club for the TI-82 master race. Well, aside from gamma males. So I think what we're seeing, and this is kind of the tip of the iceberg. This is the first warning sign. I think that we have hit peak skepticism. We've hit peak feminism. I think skepticism is going down along with it. People are actually demanding something worth living for at this point. Some raison d'etre. And listen, science is great. I love science, but it's not a raison d'etre. It's not a community. And at the end of the day, that's what we all need. That's what we need to rebuild. We need community once more. And so, folks, kill off that internal gamma and go out there and find something worth living for with some positive human beings who don't stab you in the back. Deus Volt, folks. Aurini out.